Hey, I'm on set right now, but in between takes, I want to tell you about this video that you're about to watch all of. This is part 3 of a 4-part series about the 12 tenets of transformational coaching. In this video, we're going to break down 3 of the tenets, and the third one, I would say, is a little controversial in terms of philosophy, but it's super important. Check it out. So this is going to be part 3 in a 4-part discussion, specifically on the tenets of neurotransformational coaching. We've done a couple other videos on this content, and I'm not going to even tell you what those tenets are because I want you to go watch the videos, and I want you to listen to the whole dissection of the content, not just tell you what the titles are so that you think you know what we're talking about just by hearing what the tenet is, and you go, oh, okay, I don't need to hear that one. Because with anything that's involving depth and personal evolution and mastery level learning, all that stuff requires much deeper dissection than what most people are doing nowadays with learning. I think you hear me say this all the time, obviously, Michelle, like our experience as humans has become so flattened, and you can't create deep confidence with shallow consumption. You can't create rooted certainty with just little spoonfuls here and there. And one of the things that we all need to do, like this is just a call for each of you individually, because we all have to do this individually, is we have to remove the things from our lives, whether it's distractions or habits, addictions, whatever. We have to remove the things from our lives that are keeping us in mindless behaviors. And yet at the same time, people want to do deep work, right? They want to be leaders. They want to be influencers. They want people to pay them for coaching or courses or whatever. And you have to earn them through deep consumption and deep training and deep study. And if you don't operate at depth, I mean, you don't deserve success, not in this world, right? There's no such thing as shallow leadership, in my opinion. Well, there is, but there shouldn't be. So if you're really interested in deep work coaching, then you've got to dissect and discuss and really go in to the concepts here. So is there anything you want to add to that before we get into these next few tenets?
Yeah, I mean, just to acknowledge that we're like up against the tide with that, right? Which is why I think it is important what you were saying before about like engage in the things that you really want, like that you want to see more of, that you want to be intentional about, because like media in general is just supporting the wide learning versus the deep learning. Right? It's supporting the shallow learning. It's encouraging us to just be at the surface of a lot of different things versus going deep. And so it can feel, at least for me, it has felt at times uncomfortable when I'm like, well, I already know this, but the question that I think about a lot that I heard first from you, Sean, is like, do I do this? Like, is this in me? Like, is this showing up in how I'm running my business, how I'm interacting with my clients in my own life personally? And that's a distinction that I think is really, really important. And then just the reminder that like the rooted certainty, I had this image of how we can be like, kind of like frenetic in our learning, and that solid, stable, rooted certainty doesn't come from that more frenzied learning. And so if you do find yourself being a little bit uncomfortable in like that slowing down of the consumption so that you can go deep in the concepts that are really truly important for the work you want to do, I just want to acknowledge that discomfort is normal and is because of what you're going up against, not because there's anything wrong. Like it's a signal that in this case, you're going in the right direction, not towards something that is misaligned.
Yeah, it's a really important point. And when you go into the phases that are uncomfortable, then, you know, they can eventually become more aligned and feel a little bit more comfortable. And, you know, like a lot of people are trying to multitask with their learning and training, and that's not ever going to build depth. But when you get to the point where you really have the certainty and all that, then you can start packing on, some of that multitasking. Like for you, it sounds like you're doing this training and actively mowing your lawn at
It's
the
so
same time.
loud. I don't know.
So that's good. Like, wow, I don't know. Do you have like the background? Like, is it following you? And
It's so loud. Like, it's so loud. They're not even right outside my window. They're like in the yard, but it is.
yeah,
I'll mute.
yeah, no, I think they've got like a leaf
They're in my
blower.
office.
Yeah, they're
Let me
leaf.
tell my camera so you can see them.
Sounds like they're power washing your desk. While you're talking.
Perfect.
But you just kept going. So, you do have an impressive / concerning ability to ignore, the category 4 hurricane while you're teaching about depth and learning. So that's great. Nice.
That's uprooted stability.
Uprooted stability. Yeah. Yeah. Put your lawnmower on my desk and I'll still teach right over it.
And you too can do this work. Okay.
Sweet. But don't try to learn while mowing your lawn. That's going to be tough. You can get to a place where you can mow your lawn and teach, but you got to get there. All right. So with all that being said, yeah. Tenet number 7. Now, even though I don't want to reteach any of these or even tell you what the titles of the first tenets are, the 6th one that we taught, which is the 3rd one on video number 2, and these are not in sequential order of importance or like in any sort of stage of your growth as you go through them. They're not in any sort of order of priority. But the last one that we taught on video number 2, which was number 6, is one of the most, if not the most important personal development concept that just plays all the time. And I mean, it's amazing how often I see it in my own life and other people's lives. Once you have the awareness of that particular tenet, it's going to be something that you see everywhere. So go back and watch the videos over and over and over again. Dissect it. All right, this next one, tenet number 7, the way that we are presenting them is to balance intangible and tangible. Now balance doesn't necessarily mean exactly equal time or exactly equal weight. I think balance is actually not a good word, the way that a lot of us think that we need to achieve balance. If you're a human being with all kinds of different priorities, there's no such thing as balance if balance means equal. So if you have a family, if you have kids, if you have a job while trying to build this business, you can't balance everything. Like each kid can't get the same amount of time, or your time on the clock as a parent doesn't have to be the same time on the clock as an entrepreneur. There are times when you spend the majority of your day doing one thing and almost no time doing another thing, or sometimes no time doing another thing. So I think balance sets us up to fail. The idea of balance, the connotation of balance, sets us up to fail. But it's a word that we use all the time. So, it's a part of the common conversation. So we're going to use it. But it's really more about flexible balance. And more, the word that I like even more is harmony. But in this case, we're going to use the word balance as long as we sort of redefine not just what balance is, but how we are paying attention, like where are we looking for balance? And in this case, it's not so much only just time in or time discussed, but the outcome of intangible and tangible. So in certain areas, you might only put like 10 minutes into a tangible area, but what you get out of that arena, what you get out of that investment of time, energy, or money is much, much bigger. And you put a lot more time invested into an intangible arena, but what you get out of that is less, but the outcomes are essentially balanced. I don't know if that's as clear coming out as it is in my mind, but one of the irritations that a lot of people have in the world of coaching in general or entrepreneurship is that a lot of things don't make intellectual sense because the intellect operates on principles that just don't exist in human nature or in coaching specifically, or in transformation, or in entrepreneurship, or in creativity. So you're not going to find things that are predictable the way that our intellect wants them to be predictable. What the intellect wants is to be told exactly what to do all of the time. And we want to be told, spend 35% of your time on this, and then spend 15% of your time on this, and then spend the rest of your time on that. That's what we want to be told. And the intellect, at least, that's what we want to be told. And it just doesn't operate that way. Human nature doesn't operate that way. Human beings don't operate that way. None of us individually on any given day operates that way, let alone all the time, right? So part of what we need to understand as a tenet and a principle of transformational coaching is that we just have to understand these laws. We have to understand the distinctions between things and then how they operate. So the distinction here is tangible versus intangible. Tangible is essentially anything that could be measured, anything that is more observable, anything that's more objective. Like you spending 2 hours on something is a tangible measurement of time on the clock that we can all observe and measure objectively, meaning it doesn't, like your 2 hours isn't necessarily it isn't different than somebody else's 2 hours if we're just assessing time on the clock, right? Money is a measurable object. Trajectory in terms of I'm trying to not use the word success, but nothing else coming to me. So successful trajectory in terms of like education, right? You go from second grade to third grade to fourth grade, all the way through. Like that's a measurable, tangible progress. And we love measurable, tangible progressions like that. Problem is they don't live in this world, right? So we're constantly up against the way we've been programmed to what actually is in the world of transformation. So the intangible things are things like happiness and connection and purpose and presence and joy and fulfillment and meaning and impact, all those things that our hearts really like. The problem is you can't measure that stuff. So it's really difficult to go, today I am joyer than yesterday because today I'm a 3.1 on the joy scale and yesterday I was a 3.05, right? Fantastic if we could, but we can't. So we have to constantly balance at least our awareness of and use of tangible versus intangible. And this is not an either or conversation. We're all driven by tangible and driven by intangible. The intellect only wants tangible stuff. The heart only wants intangible stuff. But we each of us are humans full of duality. So we can't just put one or the other of these in the driver's seat and have them drive the car. It just doesn't work that way. But we have to be aware of these concepts. So we want to apply them to ourselves and recognize that if we have tangible goals in setting our intentions for our business, let's say, if we have tangible goals, if we want to get this many clients, if we want to make this much money, if we want to have this many followers on whatever the platforms are, that's great. And that's not enough to inspire you to keep going when shit gets hard. But if all your focus is on, I want to feel connected and I want to be joyful and I want to spread love, okay, that's awesome too. And that's not going to track the metrics that's going to cause you to have to change your thumbnails or cause you to have to change your subject lines or cause you to have to do some of the strategy that's required to make adjustments, right? Because there are no strategy adjustments on connection. So it's a constant dual conflicting relationship that is tough, infuriating, but also liberating if we learn to use it with ourselves, but also understand as a coach, we need to constantly be looking at how the tangible and intangible is operating on our clients or with our clients, what's fueling them and what's driving them. So that's all I got for now. What do you have to say, if anything?
I wrote down I wrote down it's not either or, it's both. And so I just want to repeat that because I know that you said that, but that can't be said enough, because I think in these spaces, it's really easy for us to, in our mind, decide that one thing is wrong and one thing is right, or
Right.
one thing is like, it just feels better for us, or it's more comfortable for us, but we need both of them. And if we don't have both, then the motivation to keep going, like when you said that, like, the shit gets hard, like it will at times, but when we have that internal motivation, that's the thing that can help sustain us during those moments. And then these two things don't have to continue to compete against each other. When you understand the way that they work, you can actually have them fuel each other in order to fuel you. So it doesn't have to forever be like a conflicting relationship. It can be something that when we understand how they work, they can actually help us like be more sustainable in our energy.
Yeah. And I think one of the important ways, the distinctions and maybe an analogy that might help, is your strategy and your intellect and the tangible desires and the goals and all those things. That's like who's driving the car. That's the entity that has the hands on the steering wheel and turns right or left or straight or all that stuff that's like driving the car. The intangible is the meaning and the purpose and the inspiration, and that's what's fueling the tank. So you can have a world-class like race car driver with no fuel in the tank, and they can turn the wheel left and right. Car's not going anywhere. You can have a car that's fueled up and has a never-ending source of fuel to send the car in motion. With nobody driving, car's going to crash. So you need both. And to your point, it's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just, how's it going to work for you? And there are times when you need more emphasis on strategy and times you need more emphasis on fuel. And when you need those things depends on you, depends on the time of the day, depends on where you're at in your journey. It just depends on so many things. So it's frustrating, but it's also liberating when you understand that that's just the way this world works. So the next tenet is, and this is more of a specific application in coaching, you as the coach and them as the client, which is to always leave them on a high note. Now, it applies to ourselves also. We would love to end each day on somewhat of a high note, or end each interaction on somewhat of a high note, because this speaks to human psychology. And when humans are not left on somewhat of a high note in any interaction, it's going to be less likely that they go back to that interaction. So if you go into a room of your house and all it is just, a haunted house, and it just scares the living crap out of you, chances are you're probably not going to go back into the room, right? Now, I know that's a ridiculous example, but anything that is painful to us isn't going to be very inviting for us to go back to. Mm-hmm. But the perpetual challenge for that is the process of human transformation involves pain. You're not going to ever evolve, at least on a long enough timeline, and hit levels and stages and build certainty and all the things that we want as people without pain. Pain's always going to be involved because it's part of the human experience. So how do we end interactions, specifically coaching calls, on a high note when a lot of the work actually involves low subjects, right? Low experiences, whether it's people's grief or irritation or anger, other things that most people would experience as quote unquote negative, or at least label as negative. So how can you end on a high note? Um, First of all, anytime you can end people on, somewhat of a kind of a good, I'm putting this in air quotes if you're not watching the video, a good experience, such as happiness or gratitude or enthusiasm or excitement or whatever, awesome. If you can actually end an interaction in somewhat of a high experience like that, fantastic. If you can't, there at least has to be some form of closure and some form of enthusiasm that doesn't necessarily mean excitement. Like, it doesn't mean emotional excitement, like, yay, I want to go do that thing. But it could be at least a form of enthusiasm where it's like, okay, I understand we're making progress and I want to keep going in that direction, right? So that might not show up as emotional excitement, but at least it's on a high note in terms of we know where we're going. And so what that could look like in coaching is, and this happens a lot, like the deeper the work that you want to do, the more that you'll realize that there's a lot of stuff here. There's like once you get to the point where you want to scuba dive and you start scuba diving into the ocean or into a lake, you realize, holy crap, there's a lot of room under the surface. So you can be the best coach in the world, and in 60 minutes, you're not going to heal everybody's trauma. You're not going to heal everybody's fear. You're not going to, because those roots are just too deep. So what happens a lot of times in transformational work, and we call it neurotransformational work because it's all about changing people's neurological experiences of the world, is we deal with really deep stuff. And so we need to let our clients know that we're not done with this particular discussion. And what we just did and what you just did as a client is really good. So, like, we need to let people know the book is not over. There's a lot of pages to this book, but we just completed chapter 1. So at least there's a sense of progress, that they're going in the right direction, or they're doing the right things, or they're feeling the right things. And a lot of people don't know what you alluded to a little while ago, which is the discomfort and people feeling like they're going in the wrong direction or whatever. So a lot of times, us as coaches, some of the best work we can do is let people know they're doing a good job, they're going in the right direction. The discomfort that they're feeling is not only an important part of the process and an okay part of the process, but a required part of the process. And between now and the next time we talk, I want you to journal on this thing. I want you to pay attention to this thing. Or next discussion, we're going to pick this back up and talk about how it applies to your relationship or how it applies to your goals or whatever. These are big, big conversations that we're having when we're talking about transformation. And as best we can, we want to at least leave the client on a note that lets them know we're doing good work, we're making progress, and there's more to go, and get them some form of looking forward to where they can continue to go next. And so that's what it means by leaving the client on a high note, high in quotation marks, because that doesn't necessarily mean emotional enjoyment. But there has to be a reason for them to keep coming back. And that usually means the mind needs to understand we're making progress and there's more to go.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And I think the more that we as coaches understand like the transformation process, because we've gone through our own experience of it, right? We've had an immersive experience. We've been in like a group, like a live training, and we've had individual private coaching. Then we have an embodied knowing of the transformation process. And so when we know that, not just intellectually, but we know it in our body from experience, when we see our clients going through that, then we're able to really affirm that because we genuinely know, like, oh, like you were saying earlier, like pain, that this is part of the process. That grief is part of the process. Like that thing that you're experiencing that might not be comfortable right now. Like, I know it sucks, but you're doing great. Like, we're able to really, truly deliver that message and hold space for that because we know that's true from our own immersive experience with and in work.
Yeah, another really important point. And I think a lot of people just don't have that. You know, they don't have that personal drive, the personal experience. I was asked just a couple of days ago by a guy who is interested in doing this work and just asked, like, you know, what, however you put it, like what kept you going or what made you decide to do this work. And my answer was basically what you just said, is I had a personal experience that could not be denied. Mm-hmm. And nobody could tell me I didn't feel what I felt. And nobody could tell me I did feel what I didn't feel anymore, right? Nobody could tell me it was fake. And to the contrary, people were noticing how different I seemed to be. And they were asking about it. And so that kind of deep, deep personal experience is what most people need to keep the drive going when the entrepreneurial world gets tough, when the coaching process is not easy. And if you don't have that personal immersive experience, it's going to be tough. It really, truly is. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in this industry are trying to sell a product that they are not a product of. They're trying to sell coaching and they haven't been coached at all or at a deep level that's going to provide them the fuel that we've been talking about. And once something gets into your bones, into your body, in an embodied experience, nobody can shake you from that. Right. And that's one of the big reasons that a lot of people don't succeed, is because they don't have that immersive experience. And to your point, we can't advocate for something that we haven't been through. We can just send people places that we haven't been through, but people can tell you actually don't know what you're talking about. They usually won't say that, but there will just be resistance of some kind. But when we're advocating from the other side of breakthroughs, from the other side of healing, from the other side of trauma, from the other side of the bumps and the bruises and all the things that people don't want to experience, then we just advocate a different way. And people can feel the trust and the safety and all the stuff that that's required for that. All right. Finally, on this video, the ninth tenet is that the goal, this is my philosophy from the very first moments that I can remember being in coaching. And it was even before I think I ever got into coaching or speaking. So this has just been my personal philosophy for a long, long time, which is that we as people, well, it is much deeper than just the tenet here, because I think people desire at a primal level independence and freedom. So we as coaches, I think, should have that as our goal, meaning create independence for people. Now, that's not necessarily the best business model if you look at it from a certain perspective. A good business model is to create dependence that people need to keep paying for. But
good,
right, in quotes, it's a more profitable business model if you operate on the ways that are required to operate to make it profitable. But most people don't actually want to operate those ways. So yeah, it's actually going to fall down for most people that really just want to truly help people. But if you have a goal of independence for your clients, then you're going to coach differently than if your goal is dependence. And what that looks like is helping people come up with their own solutions, helping people answer their own questions. And the great news about that is it's actually way easier as a coach to help people become independent than it is to help people be dependent. And I think one of the perpetual conflicts here is that I think most people would agree that they want their clients to be independent, and they just fundamentally believe in independence, and they want independence for themselves. And so as a coach, we want our clients to be independent. So I think most people would go, yeah, I really want to help my clients be independent. But the processes that a lot of coaches are trying to memorize, or the philosophies that a lot of coaches are actually adopting, are not creating independence. Like, that's not even what this memorization technique would create for yourself or for them. So we've got this sort of catch-22 scenario where the way that a lot of coaches are trying to coach is not aligned with the outcome that a lot of coaches want to produce. So what I mean by that, hopefully this is clear, it's actually easier to coach when you're trying to create independence than it is the way that most people think coaching is. Meaning, most people think coaching is about answering people's questions rather than helping them answer their own. And it's so much easier to be a good question asker than it is to be a question answerer. Mm-hmm. And the great news is, being a question asker is going to lead to more independence. And it's actually going to lead to better coaching, and it's going to lead to better outcomes. It's going to lead to better results. It's going to lead to better commitment, which is going to cause people to actually want to hire you more and more and more. So it will produce profitable coaching, just not in the way that a lot of people are following the rules out there, or following the techniques, or the way that we're just programmed to learn, right? So a lot of this work is about unplugging from the way that we've been programmed, from what makes us feel comfortable, what makes us feel familiar. But the good news is it actually works better. It's easier in the long run. It's more powerful in the long run, but we just have to get through this little discomfort phase before we get there.
So there's two things I want to say to this. One is going back to that third tenet that you referred to in the second video that we've done on the tenets of neurotransformational coaching. Like, that connects here, right? Because as a coach, if my self-worth and my self-esteem and my personal value, if I've put that like into my clients, meaning I've made them responsible for that, I've made me having clients mean that I am good, I am worthy, then right, I'm not going to want that. Even if it's not conscious, even if it's operating at an unconscious level, I'm going to resist creating independence. And I was actually thinking about this particular tenet earlier today, and like the best coaches that I've worked with, every single one of them has led me back to myself.
Yeah, it's a powerful statement.
So
I just want to highlight what you said, that unconsciously a lot of coaches need dependence for their own wounds to be satisfied. So when other people need us, it makes us feel valuable because now we're important because other people need us. And so there's this dichotomous sort of counter-intellectual truth that we actually can be more valuable as coaches when our clients don't need us in the way that our brains have connected being needed to being valuable. So how do we separate those two things? And the reality is, there's so much work and experience that we need to have before it all starts to fit together. And that's tough. It's tough to understand. It's tough to predict. It's tough to feel comfortable or safe inside of, the way our intellect wants comfort and safety and familiarity and predictions and guarantees and all that stuff. But it just doesn't operate that way. Like what you want doesn't live here in the creative, entrepreneurial, neurotransformational coaching of human beings. It just doesn't operate that way. So that's a really deep statement that I think is really tough to actually comprehend unless and until you've experienced it, because it's unconscious, as you said. So while we are unconsciously trying to use our clients to heal our wounds, then we are going to be more subjective to the desire to get high ticket payments. Because if somebody pays a higher price, then doesn't that mean that the thing they paid for is more valuable? And so if they're paying a higher price for me, yay me, that means I'm more valuable. And with all due respect and love and compassion, if you need your clients to pay high ticket prices for you to be valuable, you're going to be a shitty coach. Because your main unconscious desire is going to be to prove your worth. Yeah. And that's not good coaching. And the flip side is, when you go this other route that we're talking about, your prices are going to increase because of demand, because of actual value that you give people. And we have clients, both you and I have been in this situation where, like, I can't keep coaching at the same prices. I have to raise the rates. Right. That's when you raise the rates, when you have to, from a business standpoint. Too many people are out there unconsciously trying to get their wounds healed through other people's ticket prices. And that's why there's such a proliferation of high ticket everything. Yeah. I just unloaded on somebody, not in a bad way. I was kind of nice, but for whatever reason yesterday, I got one of the pitches that I get all the time on Instagram, I think, and I can help you get all these high ticket clients or whatever. And I just said, with all due respect, like, this is the reason that almost everybody fails in coaching, is because they're chasing offers like this, right? And I don't know why I decide and when I decide to answer these pitches, I usually just delete them. But what was super clear to me is, yeah, that right there, that pitch is really attractive to almost everybody, but for all the wrong reasons. And it's what we're talking about. And truly, to this day, I've still not met a single person who has succeeded in chasing high ticket coaching. I know there are people that are succeeding in the pyramid scheme version of, let me sell you a bunch of high ticket stuff because I bought a bunch of high ticket stuff and we're going to maybe make a lot of money. But I actually don't define success as getting people to pay a lot of money. Right. So with a different definition of success, you can see that the high ticket targets are really hurting a lot of people long term. It's causing a lot of pain, frustration, and people are losing money. They're losing inspiration. They're losing because of this craving for high ticket and what it actually means. And at a deep level, like, it's trying to salve our wounds. Mm-hmm. All right. So speaking of leaving on a high note, let's just leave people there. Bye-bye. But before you go, we've got one more video that we'll do in this conversation about the 12 tenets of transformational coaching. We've spoken about 9 of them so far, so there are 3 more to go, and we'll do at least one video. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of them will take a long time. We got to do another video, but at least we plan on doing 1 more. And all of this is really leading into our promotion of a 5-day event that we do called ECCP. It's called Elite Coaching Certification Program. It is an immersive experience. It's the immersion that you were talking about a little while ago. It's the immersion that I think is missing for most people. And it's not just participating in 5 days. It's seeing all the things that happen in those 5 days. It's watching a bunch of different demos with a bunch of different perspectives. It's watching other people shift and transform and watching breakthroughs as an audience member, but then being involved in the practice of the work as a client, as a coach. It's 4 levels of learning that cannot be replaced by just simple, convenient, shallow consumption like we were talking about earlier. So if you want to have the depth of embodied certainty, which turns into attractive energy for people to go, whatever it is that they're talking about, my soul resonates with it, and I want to hear more of that. You cannot have that level of leadership in this world of transformational coaching without deep, immersive experiences. You just can't do it. Because if you don't have the immersive experiences, all you're selling is information. Yeah. Without immersion, all you have is information. And information never changed anybody's life, nor will it ever change anybody's lives. It'll perk people up. It'll satisfy a level of the intellect, but it'll never change anybody's life. So if you want to go deeper than what information can supply, then you have to create immersion for yourself, and then you can create immersive experiences for other people. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily go to 5-day events or have to do 5-day events, but for the work that we do and the confidence and certainty that we want to produce as for coaches, 5 days is what's necessary. And we've done this event for many years. I think this is 14th, 15th, 16th iteration, I don't know, of ECCP. So we've been doing it a long, long time. It's the cornerstone process and product and program for our certification arm of the business. And it's powerful. You know, I can say that just having witnessed what it produces for so many people. So if you're interested in that, it's online again this year, coachseansmith.com/ECCP. And you can check it out there. We're doing it at the end of October 23rd. Is that when it starts?
It does.
The 27th. So those are the dates. It's all online. It's the comfort of your own home, but the deep work that most people really need. So we have people from all over the globe, all different time zones tuning in, and we've run it online many times now. So it's a pretty successful delivery of this work. And if you have any questions about any of it, we'll continue to tell more and more and more about it as these videos go on. But if you have any questions, you can check it out or send any emails or DMs or whatever, and let us know your questions about anything at all. It's a stage of growth that almost nobody, in my opinion, my very cynical lens that I look through, like, why are people failing? It's because they don't have immersive, or they don't have embodied certainty that only immersion can produce. So if you don't have embodied certainty that only immersion can produce, there are no marketing strategies that are going to work, at least not long term, because you don't have the energetic element that's required for entrepreneurial coaching. Anything you want to add to close this out?
I think you just did.
Perfect.
Oh, high note. Oh.
There you go. That was really funny. End on a high note. Is that how you end all your coaching calls? Is a high singing note? Great.
It's exactly it.
Now that you say it, I usually go the opposite way. I usually go, and I'll see you on the next call. I try to go really low. But yeah, good demonstration.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Ah! Okay. If you're here, you watch that video, I mean, seriously, what else are you going to do except watch part 4 right there? Otherwise, you're going to feel incomplete for the rest of your life. I don't want that for you. Go check it out. You actually do a huge disservice to people when you tell them how they need to answer their own questions, especially with the deeper work.